100 years ago, the Indian automobile industry kick-started with few imports. Only chosen few were able to own a car. Now this has become one of the commonest means of transportation. The industry has now grown up to be over $100 billion and contributes about 50%, almost 50% to the manufacturing GDP of the country and about over 7% to the overall GDP of the country. It also contributes one of the highest stake to the GST collection, and if you look at the direct and indirect employment, it provides about 30 million workforce in this industry. And there are many people who dream to be part of this industry. Now the industry is at the cusp of complete change. From ICE engine, we are going to be a electric vehicle driven industry. We are from a simple mechanical industry. We have become an industry full of electronics, full of softwares. In this transitioning phase, it is very important to have rightly skilled people. And for this, we have a nodal agency association built in a PPP model that has just grown up to be 10-year-old, and how they are trying to contribute to the industry, how are they trying to build a workforce or a skilled manpower to support this rapidly changing industry. I have here with me Mr. Nikunj Sanghi, the chairman of ASDC, Automotive Skill Development Council, a body created in a private and public partnership. Means the government has a stake plus industry supports it heavily. Thank you so much, Mr. Sanghi, for joining ETAuto. And let's start with the understanding how in the last 100 years we have seen completely the industry has changed, and last 5-10 years has been the driver of change that we are seeing. The future of automobile that is going to be shaped, which has large amount of software, electronics, and mechanical part is going to reduce day by day. The contribution and the value of every car or automobile produced, software, electronics, and probably power, storage or batteries when it comes to electrification is going to increase. So what is the, core idea in terms of when you look at transforming the skill sector or bringing skilled manpower to support this changing landscape of the automotive industry?
Thank you, Nabeel, for having me here and also setting up the right context. I think all the issues that you talked about are extremely relevant to this industry and specifically relevant to the Automotive Sector Skill Council. The Automotive Sector Skill Council, like you rightly said, has come out of a PP mode. And the most important part is that the entire value chain, the entire ecosystem of the automotive sector is a part of the council. So if you look at the complete value chain, it starts from component manufacturers, goes up to vehicle manufacturers, and finally dealers who sell and service the vehicles. So we have three main associations which have come together to be a part of this Sector Skill Council: the Automotive Component Manufacturers Association, the Society of Indian Automobile Manufacturers, and the Federation of Automobile Dealers Association, the dealer body, together with the Government of India in forms of NSDC, our parent ministry, the Ministry of Heavy Industries, Ministry of Entrepreneurship and Skill, and finally the Ministry of Road Transport. So we have representation from all the key ministries on the Sector Skill Council. And NSDC, of course, is the controlling body for all the governance of all the Sector Skill Councils which came up. And that is how Automotive Skill Development Council also came up. Now, if you would have seen, you're talking about 100 years old, the change used to be slow. I mean, if you and me, if you look at our forefathers, if they owned a vehicle, normally vehicles would not be changed for 20 years, 25 years. People would continue to use the same vehicles. The technology remained almost the same except for minor changes. But see the pace of change today. A model which is just 6 months old is, people start calling it obsolete. People start looking for something new. People want something new. That's the pace of change this sector has witnessed. And besides the customer demanding a new change, I think it's the regulatory norms, it's the government policies, and rightly so, because they are the ones which need to control emissions. They are the ones which need to control road safety, both for people using roads and people driving on those roads. So safety norms, emission norms, those are changing radically, not just in the Indian context, but globally. And it is important that India continues to be relevant in those global norms for two reasons. Because almost every automobile brand you can think of or talk about is now represented in India. Two, India definitely has a dream of becoming the third largest manufacturer of automobiles and also one of the major exporters of vehicles to not just third world countries, but to the developed world, including Europe and America. And vehicles are being exported to almost every continent, to every country. And if that be so, it's extremely important that what we produce here is of global standards and global quality and of all those global norms, whether it's to do with emission or safety. And I think India has proved that it can do it. And it's not just the vehicle manufacturers, even the component manufacturers. If you look at the component manufacturers, we have some of the biggest component manufacturers globally. And now component manufacturers constitute have a major role in exports in the manufacturing sector to almost all brands, including the best known brands like the Benz, the BMW, the Audi, in fact, even aerospace. So that's the
You have rightly put out the intensity and the strength at which Indian automobile industry is shaping itself on a good global level, as well as how you have also talked about the intensity which is impacting the change in the industry. It is massive change that we are seeing in the last 1 decade. uh, Taking your point of view forward, I just want to understand, if you look at the change that is happening, you rightly mentioned, at the manufacturing level. If you look at the shop floor, earlier it used to be highly manpower intensive. Now it is completely getting into, you can say, low cost automation. Somewhere you have even very mature automation that we are adopting because we have to compete with the quality of the global manufacturer that we have. You talked about Indian manufacturer vis-a-vis. You have seen a lot of global manufacturer making India as a hub for global manufacturing. They are exporting to various part of the world. Look at the German companies, some of the Korean companies, Japanese companies, all of them are here setting up their back room to serve their global market. That speaks that we are able to provide them the cost advantage in terms of low cost manpower, in terms of availability of frugal engineering. That been the case, that has been the prowess of India, that has proved globally. Now I want to understand, from manufacturing point of view to the process of selling even automobile is going to change, right? Earlier it used to be man to man communication and where people used to sell. The servicing, booking and everything is completely in for a change. The service requirement of the vehicle will be changed, looking at the the electrification coming up. If you talk about the content that used to be mechanical, now you have more of software, electronics. The manpower need will be changing. So as a ASD, for the people who aspire to be part of this large automotive industry, those who want to build a career in this, what pockets of opportunity are you creating for them, and how are you creating that?
So I think, Nabil, you will need to understand that Automotive Skill Development Council saw this coming, and we anticipated the pace of change, the requirement of change, and therefore Automotive Skill Development Skill Council wanted to make sure that availability of skilled manpower is not the bottleneck in the growth of the Indian auto industry. As long as 4 years back, Automotive Skill Development Council had EY make a research, a very detailed research on the skill gap analysis. which would tell us what are the skills which will be required, not today, required 10 years from now, 20 years from now, and how do we ensure that those skill gaps are filled when the requirement actually comes. So without any intervention of the government, ASDC gave this tasks to ENY, and we now have a skill gap analysis which gives complete details, and they factor in things like automation, robotics, machine learning, artificial intelligence. Almost everything is factored in, and the impact this will have on employment. So while robotics and automation will reduce some amount of employment, but the new technologies which are coming in will at the same time open new windows of employment which were normally not available in the automotive sector. Like you rightly said, from mechanical, we are shifting to what we now call mechatronics, mechanical plus electronic. So the focus, whether it is manufacturing, sales, or after sales, it was important to have people who were well versed with mechatronics and were not just either mechanical engineers or electronic engineers or electrical engineers, or people down even in the ITIs. The technicians were very, very adaptable to this change. So I think ASDC recognized that and identified that. So ASDC took quite a number of steps to fill the skill gap. So one of the things that we realized that Automotive Skill Development Council did not have representation of electrical manufacturers on our governing council. And unless we had them on our council, how do we understand what their needs were? So again, as an initiative, we went ahead and invited manufacturers of electric vehicles to become a part of the governing council so that we could understand their needs and also address their needs. We also went ahead and started talking to some global players about EV technology. And I think one of the biggest collaborations that we did was with DFID. This is a UK government department which gets into global collaborations, global aids. And UK leads the industry when it comes to design of EVs, the technology behind it, and not just EVs, but also the battery technology. So they have rich content, they have rich trainers, they have experience in this field. So ASDC collaborated with DFID. And what we did with DFID was first to identify what should be the occupational standards, what should be the quality packs which were required, what should be the content which is required, because unless we had this as a foundation, how do we even train trainers who would finally give this training? So I'm happy to report that we have already made 7 QPs which go into R&D, which go into manufacturing, and which go into service domain. All these 7 QPs have been given to NSDC and are presently going through the process of approval. We are expecting that they will be approved very, very shortly. We have also tied up with ARI, which is the premier institute of the Government of India, which defines standards, and ICAT. So both of them are collaborating with ASDC, and through their intervention, we are trying to reach as many professionals as possible to make them aware, first even make them aware of the change in technology, the change in requirement, the educational institutions, that what is coming ahead and why we need to prepare now.
So how much of focus is on reskilling the people, already existing manpower? So how are you trying to reskill them to suit the changes that is going to take place?
So I think what the pandemic did, Nabeel, was to almost accelerate the digitization process which was happening in the industry. And we could see that change because as physical movement, so while you were seeing what was happening on the internet, while you were seeing what was happening on the World Wide Web, people were making inquiries on the web, people were not coming into the showrooms. But suddenly during the pandemic, this volume of digital inquiries, the digital interventions went up manifold. And we realized that unless our existing manpower was trained, was aware of the digital opportunities, they would miss the bus. So we went ahead and started talking to technology giants available in this. So we have started working with Google. We have started working with Facebook. We are in discussions with Microsoft. Now, these 3 are the biggest technology companies in the case of intervention.
Just
The
one.
program with Google has already been launched.
What
And
has been the outcome of so far? How many of the manpower you have been able to reskill? What number of people have been beneficiary and how they have benefited themselves? And what kind of help you are the institutions like industry coming forward to tie up with you? Are you trying to reskill their manpower? So what is the outgo right now?
I mean, you'll be amazed at the results that I'm going to talk about, Nabeel. Even being a part of the Sector Skill Council, I'm actually amazed with the success that we have met with in whatever interventions that we have done. And I think one of the major reasons for success has been industry support, and not just industry support, industry partnership. I think as ASDC, we are extremely proud that all the three associations which become a part of ASDC, which are almost, I would say, parents of ASDC, have come forward, have supported, have partnered with ASDC in taking our initiatives forward. During the pandemic, we launched almost 6 online digital courses, from sales consultants to service technicians to telecallers to showroom hosts. And you'll be amazed, we certified almost 30,000 people, existing manpower, in new technology. Now, what we did, I think, we said that unless people were aware, and I'm talking of absolutely bottom of the pyramid, the people you first interact with when you get into a showroom, or when you pick up your phone, or when you put in an online digital inquiry, we need to reach out to them. We talked to Google, we designed a program for them, and not just in English, it was also in Hindi. And going ahead, it will be available in almost every vernacular, important vernacular language required, whether it is South, whether it is Gujarat, whether it is Odisha, whether it is Bengal. I think it will be, these programs will be available.
What about the engineering part? I just want to understand what about the engineering part with the automation coming up? The shop floor is changing completely. Do you have any work on that side, like product design and development, manufacturing processes? How are you working there?
So we have multiple collaborations even there. So I think what we did was first go ahead and identified people who were available, institutes which were available, not just in India but globally, who were into manufacturing process, who were into design, who were into R&D, who were into 3D printing, machine learning, artificial intelligence. And we have various collaborations. We have a collaboration which we went ahead with was with MG Motors. So MG Motors and one of our training partners, Autobot, which is a training institute which has very rich digital content on manufacturing processes, has also online centers for imparting this training, and which is as good as practical training, because most of it is video based. Most of it is, they're using simulators to train the participants.
Just want
And
to understand, Mr. Sanghi, suppose I am a small component maker, okay? What advantage? I'm looking for a skilled people for certain operation. How SDC is going to help me in that? And suppose I am an individual want to build a career on automotive manufacturing, maybe in component or anything. How are you helping?
Nabil, it looks like you're reading my thoughts. You anticipate what I'm going to say and you frame a question out of it. I really don't know how you do it. My compliments to you.
I just want to understand.
So
Yes.
I think that's another step which ASDC saw an opportunity, and not just an opportunity, also saw it as our obligation and our duty. And we, along with TCS Eon, and you know TCS Eon is today the premier company in terms of not just digital training, but also in terms of digital assessments. So with TCS Eon, we are developing what I call a listing platform. Now, what would this listing platform be? This listing platform will be something like Naukri.com, but a little more than Naukri.com. So who will be a part of this listing platform? The first people who will be a part of this listing platform are going to be employers, manufacturing companies, dealers, both component side and vehicle manufacturing side, where they will start putting their requirements on this listing platform, in terms of geography where they require people, in terms of skill required, and in terms of the quantity, the number required. Based upon this, there'll be training partners who are also a part of the listing platform who will say, if I am located in Odisha and in Odisha, this is the skill gap and skill requirement, I will start preparing a course based in Odisha for the local people to fulfill the requirement of the industry in Odisha. Now, as a student, what do I do? So if I am in, let's say, Himachal, I will go to the listing platform and see what are the requirements in Himachal Pradesh, what are the opportunities available in Himachal Pradesh. Once having looked at what are the training partners available in Himachal Pradesh who will give me that training. So what we are doing is that we are going to skill people, which is going to be demand-based. Demand-based in terms of quantity, demand-based in terms of geography, and demand-based in terms of skill required. Why did this listing platform come up? We realized that we were certifying a lot of people, we were training a lot of people, but they were not getting employed. So why were they not getting employed? Because most training partners chose the easiest training which could be imparted. And most of the students also took up training which was easiest to get and which could be completed in the shortest possible time. But choosing that was not correct because there was no requirement for so many of those. And while we had a huge bank of certified people, we realized that they were not getting jobs. Therefore, we decided to get into this listing platform and let's switch to skilling people, which is demand-based and which also addresses geographical concerns, because specifically people at the bottom of the pyramid, they find it difficult to move from their domicile. They would like to get
one last question. In India, we have seen the biggest issue is that if you go in Europe and other countries, you see the academia and the industry work very closely. They have funds allocated. They have institutions that is meant only to bring together the industry and the academia and accordingly build the course curricula. How ASDC is working on that, because we don't see this pain point resolving anytime soon. We find some small here and there kind of association happening at the individual level, but we don't see a blanket uh, alliance between the academia and industry. How are you working towards that?
So a lot is happening even there, Nabeel. So first of all, I think, I don't know if you are aware, but vocational training has become a part of school education. So at the school level, which is the CBSE level, people need to choose a vocation. It's an elected subject, and one of they need to be
vocational education has been part, not mandatorily, but in many states, school curricula I have seen. Even the school I went to, there was it, but it was just seen as, it was not really happening. People were not really, interested in giving this education. It was just, you have to fulfill this. That's it.
So, Nabeel, what has changed is that today, what the government has done is that people who choose a vocational training, so whether it is a carpenter, plumber, an auto technician, an auto sales consultant, a tailor, whatever vocation you might choose, they have entrusted the responsibility of conducting the assessments of these students, even at the school level, to the sector skill councils. So if people in Haryana are doing vocational training in school for automotive, then Automotive Skill Development Council is the sector skill council which will do their assessments. Now, if we have to do their assessments, we will obviously specify the standards required, because if they do not fulfill those standards, they will not go through those exams. So I think that change is coming in. So, and this change will not be very fast. This change will not be very easy, but we have started working with schools. We have started working with CBSE. We have started defining standards. And slowly and gradually, we are making the assessment process far more stringent, and we are making it far more objective. So what we are trying to do is that these assessments are not left to the fancy of the person who's doing the assessment, but are so technology enabled that almost there is zero manual intervention in assessing a person. If a person is actually good, only then he will get certified. These sound like tall dreams, but let me tell you that this is happening on the ground even as we talk today.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sanghi, for joining ETAuto. I hope the way industry is transitioning, our skilled manpower is also able to catch up, and we are able to build a robust ecosystem to make our automotive industry a global one. Thank you so much once again for joining ETAuto.
Thank you, Nabil. Thank you for having spoken to me on this.